Coming up on the Sell Your Book podcast.
How does the book help feed your business or your career?
Yes, I do believe that the book is a piece of my business. When you look at the book, the way that I wrote it was from the perspective of, hey, this is a roadmap that you can use if you're looking to build your credibility on spaces like LinkedIn as an entrepreneur or professional. And this is a space that helps you to better understand how to look at yourself as the CEO of your own brand, your own business. And the way that I wrote it was to allow me the space where I can do workshops, I can do keynote speeches, I can do master classes, I can create a course from it. So it's an anchor, if you will, for me that goes in so many different directions. I can spend hours, in my opinion, talking about one chapter of that book because of the way that it's written. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of a business anchor.
Welcome to Sell Your Book. It's the podcast for existing or aspiring self-published business book authors who want to know what's working right now to help you sell more books, get more clients from your books, and expand your opportunities. If this is your vibe, you gotta subscribe. Now, let's get into today's conversation.
Welcome to this episode of the Sell Your Book podcast. And y'all, I'm excited about everybody that I bring on, and I'm excited about my guest today. I'm really excited about this conversation because we're going to be talking to an author who is in the pre-launch stages of their book. So for people who you watch these shows and you listen to them and you're like, oh my God, they wrote their book 10 years ago. I need somebody, what's it like right now or right in the thick of it? This is the conversation to pay attention to. So today we are going to be talking to Shantel Love. Now, Shantel is a 3-time business owner. She is a coach, she is an author, and she is a keynote speaker. Now, most importantly, Shantel is a woman on a mission, okay? She is out to be the mentor that she never had. She's a visionary who climbed the corporate ladder from entry level to executive roles in less than 5 years, y'all. Clock it, okay? Clock that T. So my girl has the wisdom to share, all right? So through her company, Shantel Love, LLC, she is revolutionizing how professionals approach their careers. And as a mentor and executive sponsor for a global employee research group, Shantel has helped countless individuals overcome their fear of self-advocacy and empowered them to call their inner liar and inner saboteur a bald-headed liar. Okay, that's what she does. All right. So Shantel is right now at the beginning stages of promoting her phenomenal book, Promote Your Damn Self. Okay, promote your damn self. All right, that's how I said it. And the subtitle is Secrets to Growing Your Personal Brand on LinkedIn. Personally, I want to know because I'm in my LinkedIn era and I'm getting all the books and all the podcasts and all other things on all things LinkedIn. So I'm excited for this book. Now, this book is more than just a guide. It's a call to action, providing you with a roadmap for leveraging your network and standing out in today's competitive professional landscape. So y'all, you know what to do. Put those virtual hands together for my guest, Miss Shantel Love. How are you doing today?
I am fabulous. I'm excited for this conversation. I'm like, who is this Shantel Love? So I am ready.
She is you, okay? She is you. I am her. She is me. She is we. She is you, girlfriend. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So awesome. I would love to start by digging into your background. So how do we go from entry-level positions to executive C-suite positions in less than 5 years? That is unheard of. So we want to hear the story.
Absolutely. Denise Renee, first and foremost, thank you for this platform and thank you for having me here. I do think that it's important for me to start off by highlighting that I look at words for what they are. I remember I had a manager when I was starting off in my entry-level sales role, and this was after I had led successful teams. And this manager told me that I would never be in a leadership role. I would never be a manager. It's virtually impossible. And that's what she told me. And instead of me going into the car and crying, I took her words as face value, and I went on a mission to prove her otherwise. And I started to network and I started to navigate the organization. I created a strategy. I'm a strategist by heart. And I started to understand the ecosystem to identify problems that I can solve. Then from there, I allowed my network to be my trumpeteers. And as opportunities began to present themselves, people started reaching out to me. I wasn't necessarily applying for roles. I had created and established a personal brand that spoke for me in spaces that I wasn't in. And going back to that manager who said that I would never be a manager, I would never be a leader, it's impossible to be a leader, I want to say thank you, because she was right. I am not a leader. I am not a manager, and it's impossible for me to be a leader because I am the CEO of my personal brand. I'm the CEO of my own companies. I'm an executive leader in the world's largest learning organization. I'm an author. I'm a keynote. And I say this because people will tell you, they'll project their expectations on you, or they'll project their limitations on you. And she said impossible, which reminded me that I'm possible. And I saw the word possible in it all. So that's how I went from an entry-level sales role to an executive role, because I didn't limit myself, because I know that I'm possible. Anything's possible when I put my mind to it. Same for you.
Okay, so first of all, this is my church cloth. So when somebody come up here starting to preach good within the first 5 minutes, I need to get my church fan. But today we got the church cloth.
Yes.
Now, first of all, I'm petty. I want to know. Did homegirl see your rise and see your ascent? I want to know. Come on, 'cause I'm petty. I'm petty. Okay, I'm asking for me. All right, because I know you classy. You classy. Keep it cute. I'm gonna be messy. Okay.
Yes.
Did she see it?
Denise Renee,
Girl, come on and tell it.
There were moments that I wanted to take a picture, record the rise, and send it to her. But I am a recovering petty person, right? So
I'm not recovered. I'm not delivered. I'm still in church. Okay, that's why I got my cup. I gotta go every Sunday because I need help.
But I'm sure she's seen it. I'm very active on LinkedIn and showcasing and promoting my damn self. So I hope that she does see it, and I hope that it inspires her. So I'll put it that way.
She's so classy, y'all. And I'm messy and I love it. Listen, I'm not gonna lie. I have one of those people in my past where they just did not want me there. And I was like, I will give you your wish, because I don't want to be someplace that I am not wanted.
Okay.
And I don't care to necessarily go back and flaunt anything in their faces, but I'm just like, you know what? Go where you're celebrated, be where you're celebrated. But I love it when someone is able to take negativity, and someone, I wonder when people say things like that, are they feeling threatened? Or are they feeling like it's not even possible for them? So, or they've gotten as far as they could go, so there's no way you could possibly go. I don't know, but I'm not their psychologist, I'm not their therapist, but I love to hear and see when someone is able to take that fuel and turn it into fire for their own ascent. So you basically were able to leverage your own your network, just start networking. So were you just growing with inside of the same organization, or did people start noticing you outside of your organization and did you start getting offers from recruiters, things like that?
It's a combination of both. So admittedly, prior to assuming the sales role, I had an experience of recruiting. I also had experience with growing contact centers. So I was a contact center leader. And then also prior to that, I had taken on some responsibilities in accounting. And I won't even get into that conversation. I don't even know how I got into accounting, but I progressed from there. So I used those experiences to fuel where I was going. And when I got into sales, admittedly, I had never done a sales role in my life, but I know that I'm good at selling myself. So with that being said, I knew that I didn't want to be at that range. And I'll share with you all, I went from a high six-figure job, relocated to a completely new state. I took on a role, an entry-level sales role, making $40,000 a year. And I moonlighted as an adjunct accounting professor to make ends meet. So I knew that that was temporary. My husband and I used to always say IoT is only temporary. It was a temporary step that I needed to take in my career to get to the next step. So aware that I needed to get to the next step, I needed to accelerate my learning. So I networked with people who knew more than I knew inside and outside of the company. I also networked with other people who had power and influence to promote me or put me in spaces that would allow me to showcase my talent and my skills and put me in a space where I can make more money, just to be perfectly honest. And I was selective with the individuals that I networked with. I was selective with my time. I wasn't one of those individuals who took long coffee breaks or even took a lunch break. I used that time to network and to meet those people that could elevate me to the next level of my career. I also partnered closely with my manager. I was not pulling the wool over his eyes. I let him know and I committed that I am in this role to do the job that the job description states, and I'm here to aid in the success of this team. However, my goal is not to stay here forever. And I wanted to be transparent in that regard. And I let him know where I believed I wanted to go and asked him if he could partner with me in those efforts. And I wanted to make sure that it was a mutual benefit in that regard. I committed to being the person on his team to have his back when he wasn't available. So with that being said, I feverishly networked internally. I feverishly networked on spaces like LinkedIn and my community circles and sales groups so that I can build my ecosystem of my network and leverage that. And I continue to do that to this day because you never know what, what's going on behind closed doors. Businesses have a responsibility to their stakeholders, and I'm mature enough to know that regardless of how exceptional I am and how much money I save and how much money I make for the company, at the end of the day, they have to make the best choice for their business, even if that includes removing me. So I don't want to be on the other side of the remove me and I have nothing that's lined up for me, or remove me and I have nothing to fall back on. That's one of the biggest mistakes that professionals make. So my network is genuinely my net worth. I know that I can leverage my network to grow my career. I know that I can leverage my network to attract clients. I know that I can leverage my network to grow.
So you're using the word network a lot, excuse me, and that can be, depending on who's hearing it, it could be like a yes, yay, it could be a rally cry, or it could be like, oh my God. Some people feel like networking has this like ick factor. I'm not one of those, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about how do you network, and especially if you feel like you're someone, maybe you're an introvert or you're just like, how do I network? Like, where do I begin? What do I do? Where do I go? For that person who's just that ultra shy person or feels like networking is icky or feeling like I'm trying to get something from somebody, break it down for what they can do for a perspective shift, and B, what can they do to take some practical steps to get started?
Yes. So first and foremost, I am married to a PhD level psychometrician who's extroverted but hates networking. He's the person who's like, you want me to do what? Because he feels as though it's like he believes it's a form of brown nosing. That's where his mentality comes from in that space of networking. And I'm an ambivert, which means I'm right in the middle. I am not all extroverted all the time. I am okay with being by myself, sipping some tea and watching the sunrise. So I know both sides. So I'm setting the foundation there because I know that networking is not easy. I know promoting yourself is not easy because it goes against everything that we've been taught. It goes against, being humble and, leading with humility and not being boastful or bragging. But I also know what it feels like having someone who has half of the experience that I have, who has a fraction of the expertise or the knowledge that I have, get ahead in their career. I've seen it time and time again. So introvert, extrovert aside, you have to pick your heart. And I know that it's not easy, if you will, to network, but it's hard to watch someone take a role that you know that you are destined for, that you're experienced enough to have. So in that regard, I would say don't look at networking as a chore. Look at it as a component of your career insurance. I would also say look at it as a component of
wait. Step on that.
It is career insurance, right?
Girl.
Right? And if you look at it from the perspective, if you're anything, this is how I did the shift for my husband. If you're anything and you're thinking, I don't want to come across as sucking up to someone, I don't want to come across as someone who's brown nosing, you can think of it from a perspective of where's the mutual benefit. There's something called reverse networking and reverse mentoring, where you may have something that you can give that person in exchange for them to give something to you, because that's basically all it's about. You're getting access to information they may have. You're getting access to them as a person where you may not have had access to them before. You're getting access to the things that are connected to that person. So you want to think of it that way. And what I do love nowadays about networking, because face-to-face networking can be very exhausting. You can network, on Zoom, or you can network on a phone call, where you can take that barrier down of having to come across a certain kind of way. And the advice that I typically give to someone who's introverted or someone who's starting off networking, I would say, be it on LinkedIn or be it in your company, look at someone or find someone who has qualities, who has experience, or has something that you admire about them. And what I would say is reach out to them. And if you all have like an intranet in your organization and they've mentioned that they like a certain thing, or if they've had like a podcast or something that they were on, I would recommend sending them an email or a chat, and you'll start off the conversation by saying, hey, I saw you like this, or I heard you speak here, or you said something that was fascinating to me. Would you be open to connecting for a 10 or 15-minute virtual coffee talk? No need to turn on the camera. I just want to have a voice-to-voice conversation with you to learn a little bit more about you. The reason why I say 10 to 15 minutes is people typically don't have an hour of time. People typically don't have 30 minutes of time. But if you ask for 10 to 15 minutes, it'll likely turn into 30 minutes or 45 minutes of talk time. Additionally, most people don't mind talking about themselves, right? So if you're coming prepared with at least 2 to 3 talking points, you can guide that conversation and it'll naturally flow as you're engaging with them. And then the pro tip that I would give, if the conversation goes well, what I would ask as the closing question is, do you have 2 or 3 other people that you would recommend that I talk to? And if you are okay with putting me in contact with those 2 to 3 people, now you have that person who you were brave enough to reach out to do the work for you. Now they're opening up their network to you. One, you've given them an assignment. Do you mind connecting me with these people so they know that you're a trusted person to talk to, because someone that they're connected to recommended that you have that conversation with them. And then third, now you're growing your network organically without the pressure of going to reach out to strangers. It starts with that one step. Once you take that one step, the growth happens. So that's why I would say it's critical and it's important to look at your network that way. Aside, fear aside, anxiety aside, introvert extroversion aside, and think of the value and the benefit that it has for you in the longer run.
To be very frank, this episode, and you are here because of networking, because of a
Yes.
mutual connection of ours. So
Yeah.
I have to shout out my girl and our girl,
Yes.
Nina Oglesby, PR strategist extraordinaire. Y'all got to check her out on LinkedIn. She is such a beautiful and wonderful natural connector. She actually connected me with another guest. I think I recorded his episode one or two people before you. So yeah, yeah. So just in being able to share with someone and say, hey, you know what? I think this is a good person for you to connect with. I think this is a good person for you to know. Hey, I know you're doing, with Nina, she was like, oh, I know you're doing this podcast. You're interviewing authors. You should check out Shantel. You should check out this person. You should check out that person. And we do that for each other all the time. I'll say, hey, here's a resource I've been using. Check this out. And networking doesn't have to be this like big, huge, like, I mean, it is, but it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to feel that way. And it could be just as simple and as easy as just recommending someone to a friend of yours. So I love that. And I'm positive you're going to go dig deeper into with some more networking tips in the book. Am I assuming
Absolutely.
correctly? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let me talk to me a little bit about what the book is about and what inspired you to get started writing the book?
Mm. I'll start with the inspiration behind writing the book. So I shared a little bit about my journey, but what inspired me to write the book is also what inspired me to start my business. And it makes me think of one of my favorite quotes that says, if you don't come from a wealthy family, let a wealthy family come from you. And
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You better say it again. Go ahead, say it again.
yes, if you don't come from a wealthy family, let a wealthy family come from you. And that inspired me to start a business for a couple of reasons. Because when people think about wealth, they think about the amount of money in your bank account. And I challenge myself and I challenge you to reframe what wealth looks like. Yes, financial wealth is a piece of being wealthy, but what's also important is mental wealth, the way that you think and what you invest in as it pertains to your brain capacity. Social wealth, the wealth that comes from your network and the communities that you're a part of, and spiritual wealth, how you're connected to a higher power that drives your life. And the foundation of wealth comes from the fact for me that I was not supposed to be here. And I say that because society told me I wasn't supposed to be here. My mom had me at 15 years old, and by the time she was 18, she had 3 kids. And my mom, I saw her working 3, 4 jobs. She worked hard, and I love my mom, and she did the best that she could for us. But I realized that I didn't want to work that hard. I didn't want to work that hard. So I found myself leaning into doing good in school. I got really great grades, and I followed the traditional path. I went to college and I got good grades. And after I got out of college, I thought I was going to have this grandiose career. And I ended up back home working at a call center for $10 an hour with this bachelor's degree. And I really couldn't figure out what was next. And then I realized that it was a function of my environment, like my family. I love them. They did the best that they could with what they had, but I needed to take that next step outside of where I currently was. And as I started taking that next step, I started reaching out to former classmates and reaching out to professors to ask them about opportunities, which took me from going back home in Detroit to going to Minnesota to start a job in a contact center, leading a contact center in a place that I knew no one. And I love the fact that I was able to get this job because I was making the most money that I ever made. I was a 20-something-year-old person making six figures, so I made it. And then I got laid off from my good paying job. And the thing about growing up in poverty, the thing that I was going after, I was craving stability. And I found myself feeling a whole lot of emotions, so anger and frustration and disappointment. And I didn't want to feel those feelings again. So I found myself from that point forward as an individual who always had a portfolio career, which means I had a permanent job, a 9 to 5, and then I had something on the side. It could have been something as an entrepreneurial endeavor, or as I mentioned earlier, moonlighting as a professor. And then over time, as I did all of this, I found myself giving away a lot of free advice. And I didn't think of it as free advice. I'm just a giver by nature. I was giving away advice on how I started my side hustles. I started thinking through and strategizing with people, teaching them how to grow in their career, and how I got the highly coveted six-figure job in my 20s. And I started using that strategy to help my immediate friends with their career. And I also helped my immediate friends start their own businesses. And one of my friends in particular, she started an online coaching business. And with all of the things that I was just giving away as free advice, within her first month, she made $5,000. And I was like, hold on, wait, it's something here that I need to share. So from there, I found myself deciding this isn't something that I want to keep for myself. I know what it feels to be poor. I know what it feels like to have money. I know what it feels like to have a beautiful home. I know what it feels like to be homeless. I know what it feels like to have support. I know what it feels like to not have support. I know what it feels like to get to that level in your career and reach that highest point and feel completely alone. I know what it feels like to want to make more money, but to feel as though you're swallowed up by this wealth gap because you're a certain color or a certain gender. So I found myself writing this book to help me at that point when I had all of those questions, to help my friends at that point when they didn't know how to start, to help my mentees figure out how to navigate the corporate spaces and how to navigate transitions and how to navigate closing the wealth gap and how to network and how to live the life of their dream. So all of those experiences led to me defining this movement that I call Promote Your Damn Self, because society will project, you'll have these circumstances and experiences where you want something next for you and you're waiting for someone to give you permission. But the reality is, you don't necessarily have to wait for anyone to give you permission to get promoted. You don't have to wait for anyone to give you permission to write a book.
Real quick, I know you're enjoying today's conversation, but do you want to write a book that helps you get clients for your business, grows your audience, and expands your opportunities, but you don't know how to get started writing this type of a book that can help you produce these results? Even if you don't feel like an expert, the very act of writing a book will help position you as one. And there is a proven path forward that will help you get what you want. I put it all together for you in my 4 steps to book writing success. Visit www.writingwithdeniserenee.com/4 steps. Not only do you get the steps, but I also give you videos for each step, breaking them down so that you would know your actionable steps to follow to get started writing your book right away. So hit pause on this episode right now and head over to writingwithdeniserenee.com/4 steps to download, and then unpause so we can get back into this conversation.
You don't necessarily have to wait for anyone to give you permission to get promoted. You don't have to wait for anyone to give you permission to write a book. You don't have to wait for anybody to give you permission to start a business, to go ice skating if you decide to do it. You don't have to wait. And it all starts with you believing and understanding that the power is within you, which is what started the Promote Your Damn Self movement, to stop standing in the shadows, stop waiting for permission for someone to tell you what you can do, and just promote your damn self.
Just go ahead and do it.
Yes.
Would you consider yourself, Was writing something that was like natural for you, or something that you always did, or were you just like, how, yeah, well, yeah. Did you consider yourself a writer, or were you just like, hey, you know what? A book is a great opportunity to like encapsulate all of these ideas that are in my head.
No, I do not. Now I am a writer. I did not consider myself a writer. I've always been good at speaking, right? I can get in front of a group and I can talk and I can compel people and inspire them to action. I would write in my journal to get my thoughts out, but I was not a structured writer. I would write how I feel.
Okay.
And I did not consider myself a writer at all. So when I decided to become an author, admittedly, I did it because one, it scared the heck out of me. And I think to myself, there are certain things that I need to do in my life to grow. If I'm not afraid of it, if it doesn't challenge me, I'm stagnating. So I knew that it was something that I needed to do for myself. I also did not think of myself as an author because I just didn't have the exposure, if you will, to other authors that look like me. I hadn't heard the stories of an individual writing a book of this magnitude. So I kind of struggled with that. And I will say that what switched when I was dealing with all of those emotions, what switched for me was that I was so focused on me and how I felt instead of focusing on the fact that I'm writing this book to serve an audience, to serve that person who needs it the most. It was no longer about me. And I remember while I was writing, I was taking a program actually. I quote unquote had writer's block. I was taking a program with Myron Golden, and he made a statement that wasn't directly directed at me, but it felt like it was directed at me.
Listen, everything Myron Goldman's mouth is directed at me. Okay, he's talking to me.
Yes, it felt like it was directed right at me. So he said something to the likes of, when writers say they have writer's block, it's not because they have writer's block. It's because they believe no one's going to purchase their book. And I was like, you're reading me right now.
It's fair.
So I was
It's
dealing
fear
with,
of something. That's
yes,
what it is.
yes. So I was dealing with all of those emotions, still focused on me. But at the end of the day, I felt really compelled to get the story out. I felt really compelled to serve in that capacity. I felt really driven to get it down on paper. So I was not a writer in the traditional sense, but I knew that this was something that would outlive me, and this was something that the world needed to see.
How long would you say was the process for you writing from beginning, from having the idea to, okay, we're just days away, literally, from launching the book? How long would you say was the writing process? And did you get help? And if you did get help, what kind of help did you seek out in the process?
If we're being honest, this book has been in my head for probably 6 or 7 years. Um, the idea of networking, the idea of self advocacy, the idea of being authentic has been in my head for about 6 or 7 years, and I procrastinated for 6 or 7 years. This was the year that I decided to take action. I realized that the excuse was not even an excuse. It was something that I was creating as a invisible barrier for myself. So as I overcame that barrier and started to write, what I did was I created the framework first. And as I was creating the framework, I thought of it from the perspective of a keynote speaker. So when I'm keynote speaking and I create my keynotes, I create a framework first. And as I'm writing the framework, I typically stick to several things. I stick to the fact that I have compelling stories. I stick to the fact that I have supporting and compelling statistics and data points. I also make sure that I give a powerful opinion and I give some actions, because I don't want to come across as a presenter. I want people to have a transformation after they hear me speak. So I thought of it from the keynote perspective as I was writing, and I mixed those elements in there as I was building out. And I wanted to give them something that they can act on, like templates and reflective points and immediate actions where they would stop the book and take an action right then and there, so they can see the progress of what they were creating with this book as a companion. So I did the outline there, and then I started writing. And I keep in mind, I'm a full-time 9-to-5er. So this book that I was writing was on the side, so outside of my working hours. So I committed a couple of hours after work every day just to write. And on weekends, I would wake up early before my husband and my son got up, and I would write. And then I allowed it to flow, and I didn't try to script myself or put myself in a bucket. I found myself trying to write and edit at the same time. And I was like, you're never going to get this book done. So look at her. No, I should have spoke to you at first, right?
It's okay. Well, we just met, so it's okay.
Yes.
But yeah, that is like the biggest, and that is the thing that will trip people up the most. You cannot create. I call it the 3 C's of. I just call my writing process 3 C's. It's you're creating first, then you're curating or editing, and then you wrap it up with a bow and you complete. You cannot create and curate at the same time. Just let it all out, then go back and edit.
Yes. So yeah, if you all are listening to the sound of my voice, I created, curated, remixed, changed, modified for several months in a row. So I'm just being honest with you all.
That's okay.
And then I got to a point where I realized that that's not the way. And decided to make sure that I focus on just writing. And after I finished the writing, I did my review reads before I did edits, because I felt good about where it was. I asked some close friends in my community and my network to read chapters and give me chapter reviews so that I can make sure I was headed in the right direction before I started editing or remixing, as I called it. And I started getting some really good feedback. I wanted a range of people. So I had some individual contributors, some individuals who were earlier in their career, some folks who were at my level or higher, so VP, SVP, CEO levels. I also had some individuals who transitioned out of corporate and started as entrepreneurs. I had individuals who are in the job market, who are looking for opportunities, who want to build their personal brand. So I wanted to make sure that it resonated with the audience. And once I got that feedback, it allowed me to realize, hey, do you need to continue to expand on your writing, or are you ready for editing? And then after that, I went into my editing. And after I was finished with my editing and got my testimonials, I started to build that out. So I leveraged my community. I leveraged groups. I leveraged my mentees. I surveyed my audience. I did chapter reviews. And then I did proofreading. So that was the framework and approach that I took as I was writing out the book. Admittedly, I will say that I'm a solo writer, and there are some folks that I know who have written books in groups. I am one of those individuals who I'm a proud millennial, and I did use AI. I didn't use AI to write for me. I use AI as a thought partner. And the way that I use AI as a thought partner, I gave AI a persona. So act as an entry-level sales representative who's trying to navigate the organization. And this is advice that I'm giving this person. How does it resonate with you? And just making sure that I had the different personas captured, and making sure that I was very thorough in my thinking, since I was a solo writer and I wasn't writing with a group. And that helped me to make sure that I was creating something not just that I thought was meaningful for me, something that my peers, the mentees, the group, and thought of and shared with me. But I also wanted to make sure that I was checking the box of things that they may not have necessarily thought of, or a group that I did not have access to as I was reviewing and rather writing the book.
I think you said quite a number of things that I want to take a moment and just pull out and just really encourage people. First of all, as a book writing coach, sometimes I get a little chagrined when I see people are like, write a book in 30 days with ChatGPT, write a book in a weekend with ChatGPT, write a book in 2 hours. I'm like, okay, we are not trying to be the Sha'Carri Richardson of writing. Like, that is not the goal, okay? That's not the goal. It's about really putting out quality writing, quality content, and something that's going to be useful for your people. So I have had previous guests who have been able to pull together a book in about a month or so, but it was because they leveraged existing writing that they had, and they were writers, right? So that worked for them. In your case, you didn't necessarily consider yourself a writer. You've been working on this for a while, and that's okay. One of my other guests, she didn't get her book done for 10 years, right? So it's not about how long it takes. It's about that it gets done and that it gets done well. And I think something else that you did wonderfully is to get feedback along the way. You can get feedback by hiring a coach, by hiring an editor, but you can also get feedback, and you should, even if you do, you should also get feedback from the target audience of your book. That's phenomenal and amazing. That was great instinct on your part. And I think one thing that worked very well for you also is that because you're a keynote speaker and you're used to organizing presentations, and so a book in some form, it is a presentation. You kind of just use those same instincts and skills that you already had, and it worked well for you. So I love it. All right. So this is the Sell Your Book podcast, and I know your book goes live as of this recording in a couple of days. By the time it comes out, it will be already available. But I would love to know a little bit more about the pre-selling process and what that has been for you and what you've been doing to build up buzz, leverage your network, and prepare to get the book sold. So let us know about your pre-sales process.
Yes, absolutely. I would say this was the most interesting piece for me, because I am, in the traditional sense, a saleswoman in corporate America. So I started to think about how have we in corporate America launched certain products, and what did that look like to get the excitement, get the awareness, get the word out. So I took a page from that space. I also have a network of other women who have written their books, and what do they say? A wise person learns from a smart person learns from their mistakes. A wise person learns from others. And I took the opportunity to interview a couple of them to ask them, hey, if you were to redo this again, what would you do differently, or what worked really well for you? And I will say that, one of the most misunderstood things is that content, if you will, is the pre-launch strategy. So initially I thought, okay, if I put out a lot of content, this is the pre-launch strategy, but that necessarily wasn't the case. So that's a part of it. So I created a 40-day content plan where I have content that's centered around testimonials from my book, teasers from my book, lead generations from my book. I also created a lead generation magnet, which is a sample of my book. So individuals have an understanding of what they're getting, what they will learn from the book. They get a feel from from experiences with me. And then I wrap up that book with a link that allows them to purchase the book directly from me. The digital option is available through me. And then there is an option available where they can buy the physical book from Amazon. In addition to those things, what I also did was look at press opportunities. So this podcast is an opportunity. So I've taken opportunities to speak on several podcasts leading up to the book so that I can use shared audiences and shared resources in the niche that I am speaking in. I've also booked keynote speaking opportunities to line up with I know we're talking about pre-launch, but line up with the launch of my book so that I can sell books to the audience as well. And then in addition to that, I started to look holistically at spaces that would benefit from the content that I will be sharing in my book so that I can get the buzz and the excitement around it. I've also asked individuals who have reviewed and shared testimonials of my book to share testimonials in their spaces and to help to amplify and promote the book. And then last, I have a LinkedIn group, a LinkedIn community called Promote Your Damn Self, where in that community, in some regards, beknownst to them and unbeknownst to them, I am using that as a space to teach them, to position strategies, tactics, and theories from my book that will give them what they're looking for, because many of them are looking for strategies and ways to promote themselves. And if I give them a taste of it, they have access to more than just a taste. They have the whole buffet, once the book comes out. So those are the strategies that I employed as I started the pre-launch of my book.
Nice. I'm actually in your group, and I was looking at a post earlier today, and the post itself was like a masterclass. She was like, okay, if you want to get your post more reach, instead of like getting crickets, this is what you do. And then at the end, she was like, yeah, until this post, it's your template. Go forth.
Yes.
I loved it. I loved it. So what are your goals or your hopes for your book? Are you, I don't want to say concerned, but are you going to be like really watching the numbers of the book? Or are you more so like, you know what, as long as it's getting out to the right audiences, as long as I'm getting the right opportunities to promote the book, as well as how does this, and this is like a secondary question, how does the book help feed your business or your career?
Yes. I believe it's I would say there's some duality there in the question that you asked. Yes, I will be looking at the numbers because I'm a businesswoman and there are certain targets that I am aiming for. But in addition to that, I do believe that the book is a piece of my business. When you look at the book, the way that I wrote it was from the perspective of, hey, this is a roadmap that you can use to help guide your career as a professional. This is a roadmap that you can use if you're looking to build your personal brand. This is a roadmap that you can use if you're looking to build your credibility on spaces like LinkedIn as an entrepreneur or professional. And this is a space that helps you to better understand how to look at yourself as the CEO of your own brand, your own business. And the way that I wrote it was to allow me the space where I can do workshops, I can do keynote speeches, I can do master classes, I can create a course from it. So it's an anchor, if you will, for me that goes in so many different directions. I can spend hours, in my opinion, talking about one chapter of that book because of the way that it's written. So I'm looking at it from the perspective of a business anchor, but also the fact that I know that it can be a reference guide for someone in their professional endeavors, where they can go to the book, go to the chapter on amplifying your confidence. If they've encountered something in their career or trying to figure out how they overcome their inner saboteur, my inner critic, her name is Big Bertha. So I go back and read that chapter for myself sometimes, but they're looking for specifics to help them on their journey, because everyone's not going to be at a point when they first start reading the book where they're like, yay, I want to monetize my expertise or monetize my career. They're not going to be there. Someone may go to the chapter where they want to understand how to build a personal brand while their boss is watching. How do you have that conversation if you're employed in 9 to 5? Because most personal branding books are for people who are outside of a company, who've left a company, but you can build a personal brand if you're employed. So I wanted to use it as my little, if you will, ecosystem of knowledge that will be able to serve in different capacities.
Gotcha. I mean, to even just touch on that last point, I think this is 24, last corporate job I was in was like 2016, 2017. I feel like in that last position, that last corporate position I was in, that I was starting to see a shift where prior to 2015, I would say, you know, I'm a Gen Xer, you're a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer. And what the term that I grew up hearing in the 80s when I was a kid was my mom used to say, you know, you can't be caught moonlighting, right? That was the term, moonlighting. You don't want to have like a second job. You don't want to have like a side business. You don't want to let your employees know that you had something else going on because they would want to fire you because they want you all to themselves. Mm-hmm. Selfish. But now I feel like things have been shifting, and now some employers are, you know, they have the whole like employee advocacy where they want you on LinkedIn talking about the business and talking about that. And so they want you actually to start building up your personal brand because it helps them. Yes. So I think it's an interesting space that we're in. I mean, I think, you know, me, I just recently turned 50 and I'm like, wow, the things that I've seen since I was a kid till now, I'm like, wow, the changes. So, right. And, you know, we're living through another major shift in the way that we work. And it's like, even if you're going to stay in the corporate game, you need to, I mean, the corporate pool is getting shorter and shorter, smaller and smaller with AI. And I mean, we've been marching on the IoT for a while, but now with AI, it's on a whole other level. So if you think downsizing was a thing before, it's like, now we're just going to be hiring specialists. So you want to be that specialist that they hire, that they keep. Like you said earlier, I don't want to be on that short list or that long list of people that they toss. I want to be on the short list of the people that keep because you're bringing value. So I love it. I love it. Is there anything else that you would want to share in terms of building your personal brand? What do you think about employee, you know, people who are still in employee mode? What do you think about them writing books as a way to help build their brands?
This is a great question. And I think that I want to start with the word that you use, personal brand, and even go back to the point of when you were growing up in the 80s about not wanting your employers to see you moonlighting. I want to go there, and then I want to go back to the importance of writing a book. I think right now we're in this space where, quote unquote, moonlighting can help propel your career. I know for me and many of the people that I've worked with, they acquired skills. Moonlighting, right? So that they can advance in their career, which also, as a consequence, helps to aid in the company's bottom line. It helps to aid in the company not having to look outside, which is more expensive than recruiting and elevating from the inside. And it positions them as more of a value. So I look at the personal brand aspect of it because it can be a mutual benefit if done the right way. And then also you think of the generations that are spanning and the corporate spaces right now. I saw a stat that said 50% of Gen Z want to be CEOs, not CEOs of a corporation, CEOs of their own company. So they're already thinking from the mindset of how do I become an entrepreneur? So like you said, things are changing, and it can be a mutual benefit if you take the steps to truly have that conversation. And if you're listening to this podcast, I do have a chapter that specifically details how you have the conversation with your manager, how you have the conversation with HR, what to do if your manager is supportive and what to do if your manager is not supportive, so that you can build your personal brand. But to that latter part, your book, if you were to create a book, the thing that I've realized is that every single person that I've met, and even people that I haven't met, they have a book inside of them. They have a story inside of them that they can tell. And as I've been coaching to help people build their businesses, so taking their expertise and turning it into online business, what I realize is that we often discount the expertise that we have because it comes so easy. Like, I've been doing customer service and sales for spanning almost 3 decades. And when someone's asking me questions, I'm like, oh, this is beneficial to you? Oh, wow.
Like, this is what I do when I wake up and drink my coffee. What are you talking about?
Right. That can be a book.
Well, we undervalue it because it's become such a habit and it's become such a part of us. But the person who's just getting started, they're just like, oh my God, this is gold.
Yes, exactly. So, I think of it from that perspective for individuals who want more visibility, individuals who want to be a leader, for individuals, even if you're in this space where you're trying to think through, what value you can bring to your organization. One of the exercises that I typically have my clients do is interview yourself. Interview yourself 10 years ago and ask yourself, what is the information that you know now that you would have needed back then to excel your career or excel you as an entrepreneur? And when you start interviewing yourself, you start realizing that there is so much value in the experiences that you have, so much value in the lessons and the failures and the pitfalls that you've made, and all these things that may have been hard to deal with over that time, and all the bruises that you've acquired from those experiences. Like Denise Renee said, are gold for someone else who's just starting out. And I'm not saying that you have to niche yourself into that space, right? But if you're thinking of it as something, using your book as that something to help propel your career, I definitely would encourage you to think about it from that perspective, regardless if you just started with the company yesterday, regardless if you have 50 years of experience or 5 minutes of experience. You have experience that's greater than someone right now in this moment who's looking for the expertise that you have to offer. That is uniquely your story.
Girl, I can keep you here for forever, but I can't. Uh, I think that was a perfect place to stop my line of questioning because I can keep going. How can people connect with you individually, and then, given that the when this comes out, your book will be available, how can they get a copy of the book?
Absolutely. Well, you can definitely reach me on LinkedIn at Shantel Love on LinkedIn.com. If you're looking for support, and by the way, a keynote speaker, author, or coach, you can contact me at chantellove.com or Shantel at chantellove.com. For those of you that are wanting to know how I support my clients, I empower professionals to take their expertise, life experiences, and things that come easy to them and turn them into profitable businesses so that they can close their own wealth gap. And after clients work with me, they know exactly how to monetize their experiences to attract opportunities to allow them to live a more fulfilled life. So, with that being said, if you're looking for the actual book, I will have it available in the digital copy on my LinkedIn and on my website. And then the physical copy will be available on all Amazon platforms.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for coming and sharing about your pre launch strategy and all the passion and everything that goes into your book and what it is that you do. Thank you. Listen, y'all, I hope you're taking notes. Okay, run this back because there's always, every time my guests always drop mad gems. So run it back, listen back, and then more than since we in my little church here, don't just be a hearer of the word, but you got to be a what? You got to be a doer. So go ahead, take the notes, but then let the notes actually go into action. All right. Thank y'all for hanging out on this episode. Share it with somebody, and we'll see you in the next one.